John McMullen was at the Eagles press conference today, which just reading the transcript, John, seemed to be contentious or I don't know, there seemed to be a hiding of information. You were there. By the way, John's appearance brought to you by Gino's, the winemaker's choice for 50 years. Visit Gino Pinto on the White Horse Pike in Hamilton, online at GinoPinto.com. Gino, the winemakers for 50 years. So, John, I just read the transcript. I wasn't there. It seemed like, was it a contentious situation in there? What was going on in that place?
Yeah, it was pretty contentious. It was salty Doug Pederson today. Didn't want to give up any injury information. Was kind of being very short with his answers. And that's why I kind of tried to get him to talk by asking a more of a seeing question, because it was evident he wasn't going to say anything about any player. If you mentioned the player's name, he was going to sort of use subterfuge. So I did get him talking a little bit about what comes into replacing a player for performance. Obviously, what we're talking about is Isaac Seumalo, because they refuse to admit there's been a change. And they also refuse to admit any of the safeties were going to be out, and everybody was going to be a game-time decision. And then the injury report comes out, and they've already ruled out Corey Graham and Jalen Watkins. So I don't know what good it did, because you have to do these things by NFL rules, and it's not like the Giants don't realize what's going on. So I can't really explain why it was the way it was, except that I think this team understands how big this game is. I think they understand they should win this game, and they're very, very tight about it. It's the only thing I can explain.
Well, I guess they should be a little tight about it if you have three safeties out, right? I mean, potentially, it looks like Rodney McLeod is questionable. He seemed of all of them the least likely to play, and now he's the only one that has a shot.
Yeah, he actually, after Doug said he wasn't going to practice, he did practice a little bit in individual drills, and he tested it out, and he was at least able to do that. He seemed pretty comfortable in the locker room after, and that is because earlier this week, the Eagles were expecting him to be out for multiple weeks, probably 2 weeks. So he's progressed very nicely, and he's the only one who's going to be a game-time decision. And obviously that's very, very key, because they need him on the field without Corey Graham. Otherwise, it's going to be Chris Maragos next to Malcolm Jenkins, and obviously his role is more suited for special teams.
Yeah, so you have any indication? I know Doug didn't give you any, but if McLeod is limited or can't go full, what's the blueprint back there? You got you're going to see Camus. You're going to see the kid from Buffalo that just signed. What are they planning on, or what do you think? Because it didn't seem like Doug's willing to give you anything.
No, I mean, I think they have to play Chris Maragos. If something happens from there and there's another injury, then you start throwing things against the wall. You talk about Camus playing safety, which he was a safety in college. You can talk about putting Trey Elston out there, who they just picked up on waivers, but obviously doesn't know a ton about this defense. You even start thinking about moving Patrick Robinson back at that point, because he's a veteran guy who's very, very smart and could at least understand the concept. But those are disaster-like situations. You want Rodney to play. If Rodney can't play, you want Chris Maragos to play. And you just kind of make do with it and hope the front four makes the Giants' offensive line look like the Giants' offensive line. And that's the key to this game.
Talking with John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com. Today's press conference, a little contentious.
Yeah. I'm reading here, John, that at one point, I guess Jeff McLean said something about they were going down the timing of when are they going to make the decision. And Doug says, when do we have to turn in those inactives? 11:30, 90 minutes, right? And then McLean follows up with, well, doesn't that affect the rest of the guys in the line if they don't know exactly who's playing next to them? And Doug's answer is priceless. No, I'll be awaiting your response on Twitter.
It's amazing that it's gotten to this point, John, with a team that's 1-1 and has a chance to. It almost seems like a team that's like in shambles the way this press conference went today.
Yeah, that's what we were joking. A group of us afterwards. Imagine how bad it would be if they weren't playing pretty well. I think they're playing pretty well. Hey, they won a game on the road in the division. They played one of the best 5 teams of football. Very, very tough. In one of the toughest places to play. I think by and large it's gone very well, and for some reason it took this turn today, and I really can't explain it other than I think they know this is pivotal. This is a pivotal game. We always talk about game 3s in the NBA or the NHL in the playoffs. If you go 1-1, game 3 is so pivotal. Well, in the season, it's pivotal as well because this Giants team is bad. And you're playing at home. It's your home opener. But at the same time, while you say that, you have some serious injury issues. And the one aspect of the game the Giants could potentially do something is in the passing game because they do have some talent at receiver and tight end. So I think there's concern because of so many injuries in the defensive backfield that this could get away from them.
Yeah.
And if it gets away from them, all of a sudden things take a dark turn. So I think everybody's on edge. But I think you got to show more confidence in the fact that you've shown you're a pretty good football team and you're playing a pretty bad football team. So I don't know where all the hesitation's coming from, but I will say I don't see it from the players. I see it from the coaching staff.
So, John, despite all the unnecessary subterfuge, and unneeded subterfuge, is what you wrote on our 97.3 ESPN website, great turn of phrase by you. What's your read on what's going on at the left guard position? That's another spot where Doug didn't seem to be very forthcoming with what's going to happen.
No, I mean, he refuses to acknowledge the obvious, and that's that Chance Warmack is going to start at left guard. He's taken all the first-team reps. And that's part of where the contentiousness came from. It's like Doug's played in this league a long time, and a lot of us reporters have covered this league for a long time. And we know what first-team reps mean in practice. You don't split first-team reps in practice when you're in regular season mode. You're preparing for the opponent.
Not to mention, John, his answer is insulting to you guys. Like, well, he's got to be prepared. So the first 2 weeks he didn't get any reps. Like, what does he think? You guys are idiots?
Well, exactly, and that's where it comes from. Obviously, Isaac took all the first-team reps because he was the starter, and now Chance is taking them because he's the starter.
Right, and it's not like everywhere else on the, because somebody followed up with, well, what about everybody else? Like, it's not like Nick Foles is jumping in there taking a bunch of. Right, exactly. Foles isn't jumping in there, and whoever the backup center's not getting in there and taking first team snaps. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It is. Now, the one thing you could say is possibly, look, let's be honest, Chance Warmack isn't a world beater either from his time in Tennessee, so they could be preparing the guys to split time and see who does better. So if you want to give Doug really the benefit of the doubt, I guess that could be the plan. But you would think they would split first-team reps then, and that wasn't the case. Now, we don't get to see a whole heck of a lot of practice. We only get to see stretching and individual drills once you get into the regular season. So it's conceivable they shifted things when we left, but then you have to add in the fact that Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks both told us he was going to start. So, I mean, let's be honest. I don't know what kind of competitive advantage you think you're getting with the New York Giants by doing this kind of stuff. I just think it doesn't accomplish much. So we'll see how it moves forward from here. I just get the feeling that this coaching staff is a bit on edge.
Seems like it. I mean, so it would be evident that Warmack's going to play. It would be evident. Well, we already know that Graham is out. Watkins is out.
Corey Graham.
Not Brandon Graham.
Just
correct.
felt the need to throw that in there.
No, that's right. Corey Graham out, which is what, his first game that he's ever missed in the secondary?
Yeah, he's played 159 straight games. Never missed an NFL game. And he told us today in the locker room he's never had a hamstring injury before, which is astonishing for a guy who's played over a decade at defensive back in the NFL. So he's been an Iron Man, and unfortunately that ends on Sunday.
Douglas, is his role now expanded with obviously Watkins being out? Does he start? I mean, when are we going to see more obvious? Now, Doug said this on Monday, was he going to play? Yeah, there was a package or two for him. I mean, he made it seem like he would have played last week regardless of whether or not there was an injury. But this week, is he now going to be a starter?
Who are you talking about now?
Douglas.
I lost you guys for a second.
I got a little.
We had
I was a little distracted for a
crowd
second.
distraction down here, John.
Oh, I see. A good distraction, I hope.
Sure.
It's a nice lady.
No, I'll say this. Rasul's going to play a lot, so it depends how you define starter. Ultimately, I think they're going to start, if they're in base defense, I think it's going to be Patrick Robinson and Jalen Mills. But once they go to nickel, I think Patrick kicks inside and Rasul plays. So he's going to play 70% of the time. So essentially, yeah, he's going to start. But I think he'll be in the nickel. I don't think he'll be out there 100% of the time. I think that will be Patrick Robinson.
John McMullen with us, our 97.3 ESPN Eagles insider. So, John, just to follow up on the Rasul situation and how much he plays last week, what did you see through practice this week? Is the light bulb going on for him? And will he be a better player this week, knowing that he's going to be on the field more than last week where he just got thrown in baptism by fire?
He was the best player on the field last week. If he gets any better, they might have got themselves an all-pro.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be more difficult for him this week, to be honest, only because the Giants know he's going to play a lot, and, it was sort of he got on the field because of injury, and the Chiefs had not really game planned for him being out there. This time, the Giants are going to realize that the three corners are going to be, as I said, Patrick Robinson, Jalen Mills, Rasul Douglas. And they understand he's a rookie. So they're going to dial up some things to test him. And obviously the Giants, the one strength they do have on offense is the receivers. But what I always point out is receivers need a mechanism to get them the football. And Eli Manning is not playing well. And partially it's because of the descending skill set. But it's partially, obviously, because the offensive line is so bad. So he's not going to have a ton of time to throw. I think it's going to be a lot of quick throws. And from there, all the cornerbacks, not just Rasul, are going to have to tackle. And they're going to have to make sure they come up and stop those short throws immediately. I think that'll be the biggest key to this football game.
Hey, John, earlier in the show, Mike and I were talking about the Eagles and how they plan to attack the Giants. One of the things Mike asked me was, did I think they were going to run the football more? And I said I thought they were at least going to try in the beginning, and that's not because of the noise that they heard all week and the outcry that they're not doing it enough, but because I thought they see something where they think they can be successful. That being said, do you think they're going to try to run the football more? And if so, last week it was Sproles that got a lot of the touches. Who do you think it'll be this week?
Well, that's one of those things I wish I could tell you. It is a running back by committee, and it is going to change each week by game plan. To me, if I look at it and I see that Giants defense, and you have Snacks Harrison right in the middle, this is not the week you want to try to run in between the tackles. Mm-hmm. So that would lead me to believe it's more Darren Sproles again. But this team doesn't always do what seems logical. I do think they'll run it more, but I think they'll run it more because they'll be leading in the fourth quarter. So they're not going to have to throw it 17 straight times. So I think the ratio is going to be better because they're playing a bad football team. But ultimately, I'm not sure if they're going to go in and say, we want to run it more. It's just going to be how the game unfolds.
Hey, the fact is the Eagles' defensive line against their offensive line, that's been talked about a lot. But the Giants' defensive line is pretty darn good too, right? They're not getting enough play this week against an Eagles' offensive line that has struggled.
Yeah, the Giants' defensive line is tremendous. Their entire, really, defense is tremendous, and obviously it's the strength of their team. But the Eagles' offensive line is not, they've struggled, but they've struggled generally because of one guy, the weakest link, as we called him, Isaac Seumalo. The rest of the guys have actually performed pretty well, at least average to above average. But, yeah, I mean, you have Harrison, I just mentioned. You have Jason Pierre-Paul on the outside. You have Olivier Vernon. It's a very good front, much like the Eagles. And, yeah, they're going to win their share of battles. But the Eagles' offensive line is much better than the Giants' offensive line, even with the knowledge that Seumalo and Warmack aren't world beaters. It's still a much better group.
Hey, John, the news came out today. How about Goodson being out for the Giants? Does that matter as much with the Eagles having the lack of the running game?
Yeah, it doesn't matter as much as it would to a team that can really run the football well or wants to run it consistently. It would mean more in that type of situation. But, yeah, I mean, it helps. Anytime you're missing a player, a starting caliber player, obviously there's a reason backups are backups. And that next man mentality that everybody talks about doesn't always work. So it's helpful, but yeah, you're right, Pete. I mean, they're just not a team that's going to pound the football, so it's not going to be as meaningful as it could be.
All right, we know this is a big game for the Eagles to try to knock the Giants to 0-3 to get themselves to 2-1. That would also knock the Giants to 0-3 inside the NFC East. We'll have plenty more on this game throughout the day. John will have countdown to kickoff on Sunday at 10. Those guys will be outside of McFadden's at the ballpark, outside on the patio there for the home game version of Countdown. They kick off Joe Kraus and Johnny Mack at 10 a.m. Sunday morning. John, your pick is posted at 973ESPN.com every Thursday, but Friday, give us your official pick for Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Eagles winning the football game. As I mentioned, I think they're a better team. I think the Giants are going sideways, and it's going to be a poor season for them. I just don't see how they're going to be able to do much offensively with that offensive line, that running game. I don't see the Eagles doing a ton offensively either, but I could see a pick six sort of extending the score, and I have the Eagles winning 24-13.
24-13. Don't forget, pick the perfect score tonight at 5:30. You can win $300 at 5:30 with Pick the Perfect Score. All right, John, we'll be listening Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, countdown to kickoff from McFadden's at the ballpark. Thanks, bud.
All right, thank you, guys.
Take care, John. John McMullen's appearance on the show today brought to you by Geno's, the winemaker's choice for 50 years. Visit Gino Pinto on the White Horse Pike in Hamilton. Online at GinoPinto.com. Geno's, the winemaker's choice for 50 years.